the book editing has been extraordinary. This book is going to be so remarkable.
Yay, I'm so excited.
Marima,
hi, Linda. Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Hi, sweet Linda.
Hi.
May the floods of people enter in through our gates.
You guys had a great time in Egypt.
Oh, yeah, we did. It was so lovely. I really enjoyed myself. It was so beautiful.
It was absolutely stunning. Trip of a lifetime.
Hello, Narima. Nice to meet you.
Hi, nice to meet you too.
Hi, Narima.
Where are you from?
I'm from Kenya.
Oh, amazing. Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for being here.
Yay.
Linda is up in Newfoundland and you're in Dubai and I'm in New York. Could we be more international?
There's more people coming too. We're covering the globe here.
We are indeed. I want to welcome you all. And the conversation that Alicia and I have been having is the power and the impact of our ancestors and our generations and how they touch our lives daily. So recently I was dealing with an event that happened that had triggered some very, very deep shame. And I went through a process with a girlfriend. She said, what are the feelings and emotions that you're having? And I listed all of them. And she took one of them and she said, okay, I'm going to say this word 3 times. And I want you to tell me where you feel it. And she said, shame, shame, shame. And I was feeling it deep inside of my pelvis. And we went in and we had a conversation with my father and my mother, their father and mother, and then theirs. So it went from 2 people to 4 people, and then 8 people on top of that. And it even went up another level. And these are the people that I, have seen pictures of and know the stories of from my immediate family tree. But there was this field of shame about money, shame about affairs, shame about a murder, 2 murders that happened, shame about sexual abuse, about rape, about abandonment, about poverty, about people leaving, just people dying in childbirth, dying early. Wait, here comes somebody else. That's what's happened. And so we talked about the power of when you make a choice. Connecting to audio. She's Hi, Elizabeth, and welcome.
Yay.
So we're here to talk about the realm of quantum ancestry and how much your ancestors impact your life in this very day. It has to do with not only your physical DNA, but it also has to do with your spiritual DNA. And what we mean by spiritual DNA are the soul contracts that you've made for the families that you've chosen to come into, the mother and father that you chose to have. And you may not agree with the idea that you chose your mother and your father. Sometimes when I have these conversations with people, people don't believe in past lives. People don't believe in soul contracts. People don't believe in, ancestral impacts. It doesn't matter whether you believe in it or not. It doesn't matter whether you believe in gravity. It's going to operate in a certain way. And one of the things that happens with our ancestral lines is we have come in and we are the ones, it's kind of like the buck stops here. We are the ones who have made the decision that whatever it is that's been afflicting or affecting or impacting our families is something that we are here to deal with. You guys didn't trip and fall into this room. You saw something, you were drawn by your souls to be here. Elizabeth, do you want to introduce yourselves and tell us where you guys are?
I just unmuted. Hi, I'm Liz. This is Michael. We are in Wine Dance now at Michael's place. And let's see, I've met you a couple times. I've known Alicia for a while.
It's good to see you, love. You're the beautiful harp player.
Yes, thank you.
Yay.
And
Oh man, I miss playing the harp.
The last I saw you, we were eating pizza together after that beautiful meditation we attended.
with your friend, I forgot her name. She was wonderful.
Carla.
Carla, thank
Carla.
you.
Yes,
I'm glad Alicia remembered.
I picked it up. I wasn't even there.
thank
Oh, that's
you.
where we went. Steve Enterante was leading it, and we ran
Yes.
into Rob Scarpa there. That beautiful meditation room where we were.
Oh, it was gorgeous. A lot happened that day.
Yeah, it
And I was
beautiful.
reintroduced to the Violet Flame, so I don't have Carla's contact info, but I would
Oh,
love to connect
We'll
with.
make sure to get that. She leads a really beautiful class teaching about Saint Germain and the Violet Flame.
I believe it.
So-
She has great energy,
Oh, she does. She's a magical creature.
as are you.
Thank you, my love. So Liz and Michael are on Long Island here in New York. Narima is in from Kenya, and Linda is here from the Newfoundland area, way up on the edge of Canada. And Alicia happens to be in Dubai right now. So I was saying that we're quite the international crew.
Yes, indeed.
So this whole conversation about ancestry, to me, has always been fascinating. There were stories, there were rumors in my family line. And when ancestry.com and 23andMe came out, I was dying. I was like, give me that tube, I'll spin in it. My sister's like, they're trying to map the human genome. And I'm like, I don't care. I want to find out about our ancestors. So I spit in the tube, and then I had my parents do it. And all of a sudden, all of these, like, you have what are called centimorgans matching DNA. And depending upon how many you have, like for a mother and a father, I think it's like over 3,000. But for cousins, they'll be in the hundreds. And all of a sudden, I had this cousin, and their name was Bunny. And I was like, oh, I have a cousin named Bunny. And I was like, hi, Bunny. Nice to meet you. My name's Lynn. I wonder how we're related. And this guy writes back and he goes, my name is Bernard, but no one can pronounce it. So they've called me Bunny my whole life. I'm like, nice to meet you. Where do you live? And he goes, I happen to live in New York. And I'm like, get out of here. I said, what are your family names? And he told me his last name was Friedman. That was his father's name, but his mother's name was King. And I almost fell off my chair because in 1986, my grandmother said to my father, Johnny, I always told you that Diagar was your father, but your father was really a man named A.G. King. And he was like, what? And then my grandmother like, shut up. She didn't want to talk about it. So it said so when this thing came through, I found out that not only was there Bunny, but there were sisters, there were cousins, like from Guyana, British Guiana, and South America. But I registered as 13% African-American from Benin and Togo and I think I want to say Kenya, but Western Africa. And that my father had my mother and father spit in a tube. My father was 27% African. And my grandmother had like totally changed the story. We were 38% Jewish, like all this stuff came out. So I became fascinated with this whole idea of ancestry. But then what spirit started to show me is there's physical ancestry that you have, but there's also spiritual ancestry. So you've come in to be the person to say, this is a theme that we've dealt with in my family, whether it's, abuses that people have experienced, whether it's been wealth, whether it's been poverty, whether it's, whatever, everybody's got kind of like the skeletons in the closet. And one of the things that Alicia and I have been investigating, and that's why we decided to put this class together, is that we have soul contracts that we've signed with all of the people in our lives, people that we marry, children that we give birth to, the mates that we have, the bosses that we have, the parents that we have, the siblings that we have. And it's all because we're here to experience certain things according to the stories and what has been created by our ancestors. So let me ask each of you, what are some of the ancestral stories that you have? Whether they've been talked about openly or whether they've been something that's been hidden.
Should I start?
Yeah, please.
So I've been working with Lynn for a number of years now, probably 6 years. Oh, five, six, multiple lifetimes. But, you know,
Definitely multiple lifetimes.
but the work that we do is very profound because it really gets you down to the core. So the thing with a lot of healing work is that a lot of people are just like, all right, surface level, this is what's happening here and now. But one thing that Lynn taught me is that it's all about the root, because you can kind of scave off the top of whatever's going on, but if you really dive deep into what's going on and what's happening, then you recognize the stemming of the root, right? So when I was trying to move out of my mom's house, there was just this blockage that was happening. Like, no matter what I did, every apartment was falling through. Everything that I was trying to make happen for myself kept falling through. And I just heard in the back of my head, you have to heal yourself. And I like call Lynn crying on the phone, and I'm like, I don't know what's going on. I feel so blocked in my life. I feel like I'm reliving all of these traumas. And she was like, it's much deeper than this, you know, like come see me. So I end up going to her house, tears in my eyes, and she's just like, all right, sit on the table. We're going to do this healing. Rob Scarpa was there as well, for those of you who've known him in the community. But we ended up doing this deep healing. And what I saw was like this instance when my mom actually abused me physically as a child. And she had hit me so hard that it broke my wrist. And I was able to go into this pain and identify all of these different associations that this was connected to, right? It was like depression, self-harm, destructive behavior, all of these things that were then programmed into my mind from these experiences. And as I learned to release this, right, Lynn and I did this healing technique together. One thing was that the healing didn't just stop in this session, right? It wasn't just about the recognition about this. Like, we went into really deep, like, Akashic healings. And I ended up learning that, like, my mom had also gone through abuse in her life, and that her mother was also abused. And like, I started to see the lineage of abuse that was passed down to me. And for me to step into this level of awareness that it wasn't only me being the victim, that this stemmed so much deeper, and that I was the point that could break this chain of abuse. And this is the important thing about generational healing. It's like, you as the person who desires to step into the awareness, the conscious awareness, you're the empowered person. You are the person who has the ability to change the narrative for your family. And this is exactly what it's about. It's about empowerment in the sense of conscious awareness, in the sense that you are the healer, that you're empowered to make this change in multiple different facets, when it comes to abundance, when it comes to relationships, when it comes to how you treat your children. All of these things are your entry point to healing your family lineage.
How you feel about yourself. We get indoctrinated when a mother and a father have interactions with their children. What will happen sometimes is, if the father's upset about something, he will bring that anger to the child, and he will say something very negative to the child, like, you're such a jerk. And the child literally takes on an identity. He takes on what seems to him like the winning identity, which is the father, and then he begins to process himself and say, I am such a jerk. We all have things like this that have come from our parents, or they've come from school teachers. I remember one time I was in 7th grade in science, and I loved science. I was so excited. And the teacher said, does anyone have any questions? And I raised my hand and I said, is it true that monkeys have 2 brains, one in their head and then one at the base of their tail, one at the base of the spine to operate their tail? I don't know where this question came from. The teacher looked at me and he said, that has to be the stupidest question I've ever heard. And I was devastated. And I started to hate science, and I started to hate this teacher. And things like that, like when people say, there's no such thing as a stupid question, I'm like, oh, I ask stupid questions. Like that, it starts to be a belief that we have about ourselves. So we have these indoctrinations that happen, and they begin to completely shape the way we are in the world. And then we then in turn do that to other people. You know, those who were molested become the molesters of the next generation, and so on and so forth. So we have to start to develop, first of all, we have to start to recognize that there is this negative self-talk that's going on. Alicia, will you talk about some of the incredible work that you've been learning about the neuroscience of
Yeah.
happiness?
So I've been reading this book and it's called Buddha's Brain, and it's basically about the neuroscience of happiness. So essentially in this book, it talks about how our brain is conditioned in different ways throughout our lives, right? So there's this concept called neuroplasticity, and it means that the brain is malleable. And as we continue to learn, as we continue to go through our lives, like our brain becomes wired in a certain direction. So when we face things like trauma, it actually affects the way that the brain is formulating its thoughts. So when you start to be conditioned under the guise of trauma, you're constantly conditioned into the place of being small, negative self-talk, being conditioned into the place of depression. You know, so what this book is about, it's about recognizing the conscious thought patterns that have been repeating in your mind, and recognizing how you are the activator, you are the person who can initiate that change in your brain just by conscious awareness. So that's about shifting your thought pattern into the place where you can start to think in more positive pathways, releasing more serotonin and dopamine into your brain. So this is done through methods like mantra work. This is done through methods like mindfulness and meditation. And it's
Meditation.
real, yes, and it's really about reprogramming and taking control of your mind.
And it's about finding out that there are beliefs that you've held about yourself that you're not even aware of, that have come to you through your family. Have you ever
Yes.
heard that story of there was a woman and she went to bake a ham and she cut off both ends of the ham? And her daughter said to you, Mom, why do you do that? And she said, well, because my mother did it. And so the granddaughter calls the grandmother and she says, Grandma, why do you cut off both ends of the ham? And she said,
Mhm.
because my pan was too short. So the mother is cutting off you know, and then it gets passed on to the daughter, and then you know,
Yeah.
to the granddaughter. And it's just because
And you don't even know
you
why.
don't even know why.
Yeah.
So there are so many things like that. Like we're unconscious about why we have certain behaviors, why we have certain things that we like. One day my brother was like, I want a bell pepper. And I'm like, oh my God, I love bell peppers. My sister's like, I love bell peppers too. And we had a memory of a woman that used to babysit us when we were little, and she would cut up bell peppers, and we fell in love with bell peppers. Like you'll have certain things that you like together, or certain things that you don't like together. You know, certain
Yeah.
things that are good memories for you, and certain things that are nightmarish memories for you. But there's a patterning, there's literally an energetic patterning that comes from your ancestral lineage. So one of the things that Alicia and I are going to do, where there's a workshop that we're going to open up about this, and actually there's a retreat that we're doing in Costa Rica in December, and we're going to be focusing on this. We're going to be in the jungles. We're going to be dealing with the natives. Alicia has a home in Costa Rica. She's an extraordinary young woman.
Thank you.
How many years ago did you buy that home, baby?
3 years ago.
When Alicia, a couple of years ago, it was so funny. I just went to have dinner with Lynn at Blackstone, and we were a booth away from where you and I sat. Alicia
Awesome.
was recognized as one of 30 under 30 in the state of New York for what it is that she's
Yes.
accomplished in politics and in business and in her marketing. She's just extraordinary. And she was able to buy a home in Costa Rica that she's financing herself. She has traveled to, what is it, over 30 countries now?
30 exact.
She she called me one day and she
30
goes,
by 30.
she, right? So funny. So by the time you're 80, you'll have gone to 80 countries, right? She calls me
I'll,
one day
I'll
and she
probably
says,
be well over 80 by then.
I'm sure at least 120. She calls me one day and she says, hey, I've just put together a retreat for us to go to Egypt. And I'm like, let's do it. And we put together all the marketing for it. We had a link for it. We had videos for it. We had a schedule for it. And before we knew it, like in one day, 5 people had signed up and we were like, oh my God, we're going to Egypt. And we just had a trip of a lifetime, some high highs, some low lows, and everything in between, but something that has transformed every single one of them. Absolutely extraordinary.
Yeah.
if the healing that she had done, and guess who came on the retreat with her? Her mother. Her
Oh
mother was
yeah.
on the retreat with us.
Mhm.
That was something that was not going to happen.
Definitely,
It's so funny.
100%.
After you did that healing, so Alicia and I met in August of 2018. We did that healing with you in September or October of 2018, and then you were moved out by November. But you and your mom were
It was almost instantaneous. It was literally like
crazy.
3 weeks later, like
Yeah,
all of the, like the next day the pieces started to come together. And by 3 weeks later, I was like fully moved out.
here was
It
the
was like
funny thing.
instantaneous.
The funny thing about her mother. Her mother is as gorgeous as Alicia is. And her mother's like my age. We're in her 60s. But her mother was getting hit on by guys
Left and
all over.
right by guys
All over.
my age and
Guys her
younger than
age, guys that were older. We're like, Camellia, like what's going on? We
You know,
said to
it's
them,
so funny. The number one thing, like I just went to a thing in Dubai and it's like everyone's coming up to me and they're like, Alicia, where's your mom? Like it literally like 4 times. Like people are like, where's your mom?
she was with you the last time. She's very popular. She was a nurse for so many years. She just retired and now she's kind of traipsing all over the world with us. She's just an absolute hoot. You can heal the damage. You can heal what's broken in your ancestral lines, and you can literally heal your relationships and your dynamics. I moved home to New York in June of 2016. My stepfather had passed away. My mother was living by herself. One of my best friends called me and she said, your mom has lost her will to live. And I was like, what? What? I called my mom and I'm like, Mom, have you lost your will to live? She goes, Tommy died. I'm alone. She was falling down a lot. And I came home. I was scheduled to come home at the end of April for Passover Seder to visit with the family. And my uncle dies in the middle of April. So I come home early. So I'm in New York for 2 weeks. And I realize I hear this voice that says, you need to move home to New York. I'm like, man, my mom and I were like Alicia and her mom, like we were just at odds. And I kept saying to my mother, I'm being told I'm supposed to move home. And she's like, I don't want you to move home. Why are you moving home? I'm like, Mom, I'm trusting this voice. I'm moving home. So June 1st, I just celebrated 7 years that I moved home. And my mom and I are closer than we've ever been. Like you can go in and do the healing. I hadn't seen my dad in 11 years, and he was suddenly dropped at our doorstep. He had severe Alzheimer's dementia. The girlfriend he was with for 13 years said she couldn't take care of him anymore. And my mom and I went through this incredible healing cycle. She hadn't forgiven him in 50 years, and I hadn't been able to forgive him in 11 years. He was definitely a darker horse, shall we say. But when you see someone who's become completely crippled, completely dependent, suffering with Alzheimer's and dementia, like our hearts just went out to him and all the forgiveness in the world came. It healed our entire family. When I brought my father to a home in Texas where he wasn't going to hurt himself or anybody else, my whole family got closer. Like there's things that you can do now that will impact your children, your grandchildren, your parents. Like in the quantum realm, which is the realm that we work in, it's not a traditional past, present, and future. All time exists at once. So when you go in and do this healing, it happens like in an orb. It impacts the past, the present, and the future simultaneously. It's really, really extraordinary.
One thing that I'll say is it's so interesting when I did this healing with my mom, that same day that I went home, my mom had no idea where I went. Like she thought that I went to the store or something. I didn't even tell her where I was going. We were fighting so badly, we weren't even talking. I went home and she looked at me and she said to me, you look more healed. Literally looked me in my eyes, had no idea I was doing this healing work, had no perception of what I was doing, and said that to me out of nowhere.
And she cooked for you.
And she cooked me my favorite meal too. And she
Which
literally hadn't cooked for me in like 2 months.
Right.
Literally out of the blue. And I remember like that just strong validation. Like, I mean, after that, there was still moments, you know, of course, but like it was so instantaneous, like that moment where I met myself and met that healing, just to see also how her energy shifted without her having to do the healing. And one thing that I'll say too is I feel like because I've done this healing work, like she's completely also changed as a person, like in multiple facets, you know, like people come come up to me and tell me like my mom is so much more open than before. Like she's open to like connecting to other people and relationships, and it's an entirely different person, you know. And my mom, like in this place of understanding, like she's been through serious traumas, you know, she had cancer and she's been through abuse herself, but for her to also see me go through this healing and this forgiveness, it's like when you embark on this healing journey, it's like a ripple that you send out to the universe. Your energy is constantly impacting the energies around you, especially those that you're woven into these connections with. And it's really about you identifying where needs to be that focus of healing. And through that focus of healing is where that ripple is sent out from.
Another important piece is that, like you said, when you do the healing within, it begins to change the people on the outside. There was a time when your mom was not a fan of mine because she felt like you and I were closer than you and she were. And after this trip to Egypt, she and I became really big fans of each other. Like, you know, she
Yay.
got to see me with my imperfections. She got to see me with the most severe case of dysentery in the runs of like begging her, like she got to see me with 80 insect bites over my body, handing me cortisone cream because she's a nurse and she had a full pharmacy with her. Like, let's be real. And like when you go to someone and you're like, please, I need your help, I'm dying. And she was like, here's Imodium, here's Pepto-Bismol, here's cortisone. She, you know, we bonded. It was really sweet. And I'm like, Camilla, I'm a year younger than you. Like, come on, it's okay. And we just teased her about how much, like, she was just adorable.
And
She
then
looked cute in her bathing suit. She looked cute in her clothing, and the men were all over. I mean, men from Amelia's age to my age were flirting with her. It was hilarious. That kind of transformation becomes available when you're willing to go in and take a look at what's happening in your family, and to realize that the wounds that you carry come to you through your family. Does that make sense? So let's open up the floor. Do you guys see any other patterns, generational patterns that you have in your family? Maybe things that you see that you now see in your children, or things that you see in yourself that came from your parents. Anything like that?
Michael has something.
Yeah, I totally relate with a lot of things you were saying.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example.
Okay.
Getting a reading from a very, do they know Neela?
No.
Anyway, this woman in Neela, a very, very talented woman. And she didn't even need cards or anything. She just, and she had mentioned a thing that I need to forgive my grandfather, okay, who is a very abusive man, but he did things to my family that I had considered unforgivable.
Yeah.
And what was that, over a year ago?
About a year, yeah.
Yeah. Then I'm like, this ain't happening. Okay, this is not happening, right? And then I noticed as the last year has been progressing, that he would come to mind randomly, and there were certain things where the good memories were coming back,
Beautiful.
and through those good memories, I was starting to heal, and actually starting to forgive him. And I don't even want to go into the details of how he hurt my family, but you guys understand, so I don't have to.
Yeah.
So you guys are right on target. I mean, there are probably millions and millions of people in this world that need to hear this kind of a message to start healing themselves.
Yep.
Very important.
Yeah.
Out of this pain that we all carry.
There are things that my father did that I found out at 58 that I thought were unforgivable. And when I talked to him about it, the dementia was well upon him. And I said, Dad, I remembered some stuff and I want you to know I've forgiven you. And he goes, well, what kind of stuff? And I said, look, I'm not going into detail, but I just want you to know that
Right.
I've done the work of being able to forgive you. And he paused and he took a breath and he said, I don't think I'll ever be able to forgive myself. And it caught, like, I was like, because there's a point as a girl when, like, you haven't had a memory and suddenly the memory comes back and it's like a 60-year-old memory and you're like, did that really happen, or am I just like
Mhm.
really creative mentally? Am I making this all up? And what I learned about the way that the mind works is we're not that creative. Like, we're tapping into the Akashic records, but we're tapping into memories. And he said, and I said, so are you saying that it really happened? And he goes, listen, it's really noisy where I am. Can we please have this conversation another time? But like, for a moment, he remembered, because he couldn't remember recent stuff, but he could remember stuff from a long time ago. And
Right.
it becomes a game of self-forgiveness. And it becomes not a game, but like, you have to master self-forgiveness. You have to master that you chose this. Like, I have to say, in all self-responsibility, I chose this because this is something I needed to heal and be able to experience within my own family lineage, to then be able to take it to the other members of my family who had experienced some similar things. So, Michael, this work with you, with your grandfather, what it will do, I have an alarm that goes off at 3:33 every day where I thank Jesus. So, that's
Right.
Yay.
All right.
I have another one at 4. I have all these alarms that I do during the day. So God bless you, because everybody needs forgiveness. We need forgiveness. The more forgiveness that we can offer to others, like, God bless that that's the work that we can do in the world.
Mhm.
And
Go ahead, finish. I just have one more question, but go
I
ahead.
know it's beautiful. So thank you. Thank you
Oh,
for being the one in your family to do that. I truly honor that.
Mm.
Another problem I'm having with is forgiving myself over things that I've done over the years, because I'm 66 and, you know,
I know.
and I,
Listen, that's even bigger than forgiving somebody else.
that is
Mm.
so hard.
I think that's what confessional is good for. Where I seem to find forgiveness, I know this may sound crazy, guys, so bear with me on this one. Sometimes I'll go to a tree. I have this favorite tree in the yard, and I'll literally put my hands on her. It's going to make me cry. And I'll ask for her to forgive me. And she says, give me all of your darkness. Give me what you cannot bear, and let me take it from you. And I literally feel it lifted off of me, and she absorbs it from me, and it lifts. So, Michael, maybe find a tree, find a rock, find a plant, find an animal, like some kind of beingness, some kind of life force that you can give that to. Because sometimes it's hard, like, to just look in the mirror and say, I forgive you, when all I want to look is say is, oh, there's a pimple, or there's a gray hair. I have a few of those these days. Here's a this, or here's a that, or look, here's a wart, or, whatever. Oh, look, it's a stretch mark. One boob is bigger than the other, one foot is bigger than, like, whatever it is.
You got the 1 foot too, huh?
Dude, it's so annoying. You go to buy shoes and you're like,
I got a 7
Thank
and a
you. You
6.
could ask my wife. I had to try on 20 pairs of shoes.
dude, now they
My
check.
foot was
They
always
check.
small.
It's a thing. It's a thing. So for me, I found that, like, Jesus had me do mirror work where he said, look into a mirror and look for me looking back at you.
Ooh.
And so this is the latest. He drops in these techniques. Here's the latest technique. I had a family member, extended family member, reach out to me and say, listen, I've got a dear friend. He's a famous musician, famous rock and roll musician. And I'm like, I don't know rock and roll. I listen to kirtan and opera. So, I'm like the left, or Madonna or Sting, like, that's it. That's my playlist. And she says, he's in the hospital in New York. Could you go in and do a hands-on healing with him? Because I've been doing this thing where Jesus comes into me. God goes into Jesus. Jesus comes into me. We lay our hands on people and we're able to extract darkness from them. I call it like spiritual turducken. You know how, like, the chicken goes in the turkey, turkey goes inside. Anyway, crazy.
Go ahead, I'm following you.
So I go into the city to see this guy, and he's like sitting there with, like, literally a Hell's Angel, a guy that has a jacket on it. And I'm like, are you really from the Hell's Angel? He's like, yeah. I'm like, okay. And then I see this friend of his in the lobby, and I just knew this guy because he looked like a rock and roller. And he goes, oh yeah, you might know him. He's from a band called Counting Crows. And I'm like, I've heard of
yeah.
Counting Crows. Like, I don't know their music, but whatever.
Yeah.
Anyway, so it's just me and Jesse. Jesse has recently had the disc under L2 burst, so he's paralyzed from the waist down. And he's just got this thriving musical. I mean, he plays with, like, you know, Bruce Springsteen and all these people. I didn't know him, but you look at his Wikipedia and you're like, oh my God. So Jesus goes, okay, I'm going to put my hand on his heart. So I watched Jesus. He's facing Jesse. He puts his hand on his heart. Right hand on his heart. He wraps his left hand behind his neck. He pulls them third eye to third eye with each other.
Okay.
And then he says, inhale 10 times. And every time you inhale, you're inhaling like golden light from Jesus into your pineal. And what it does is it begins to decalcify the crystals on the pineal gland and opens it for healing. And he goes, do that 3 times a day. So 30 times, 10 breaths, 10 breaths, 10 breaths, and have him do it for 21 days. And so I explain all this, and I'm like, Jesse, are you Jewish? And he goes, by birth. And I said, well, here's the good news. So was Jesus, and so was his mother. And he goes, huh, oh yeah, I guess they were. Because Jesus said to me, not my book, not my buildings. Like, it's a whole other Jesus that I know. So I throw this video up on TikTok the other day, and like it starts to go viral. People are like crazed with this. So let me offer that to you. It's a beautiful, so Jesus says, have Jesse send you a little X every time he does it. So I went to see him on Memorial Day, and every single day, and I said, Jesse, I'll do this with you. So we're doing it together. So every day we're like sending each other these 3 X's for whenever it is that we're doing it during the day. Sometimes I'm up at 5 a.m. Sometimes I'm up till midnight. Doesn't matter. But Jesus said he was going to walk in 4 months,
Wow.
Listen, crazier shit has happened. Right?
Oh yeah.
So anyway, very, very cool stuff. And this kind of healing is going to impact his entire family. His father came through, his mother came through. I do mediumship. He goes, oh, my friend Joey's here. And I go, cool. He goes, yeah, Joey Ramone. And all of a sudden I hear,
Get outta
he is a punk rocker. I literally am in the hospital.
Yeah.
I swear to God, like, you can't make this shit. Like, again, I'm not that creative. I'm not fucking George Lucas or Steven Spielberg. And then his mother comes through and says, please spend time with your sister. I said, you have a younger sister? And he said, yeah. She wants you to spend time with her. And she's like, yeah, I need to do that. So it was an absolutely gorgeous experience. Totally freaking amazing. Such a blessing to be able to touch somebody's life like that, absolutely gorgeous and magic. And, like, this is my life. This is what my life is. I had a crazy thing happen when we were in Egypt, and I was telling my mom about it, and she's like, I don't know why these things happen to you. And I said, I don't know why these things happen to me either. I'm like, God, I'm doing healings. Like, this is my life's work. Like, I'm taking people on spiritual pilgrimages, like, but he's like, I've never given you anything that you can't handle. And the healing that you do with it is going to heals a lot of people in the process. So I'm like, fine, I'll take it all on. Please excuse me. I'm a New Yorker and I use scatological language, which is cursing. So it's just part of who I am. I hope I don't offend anybody. And if I do, sorry.
Yes.
Okay. Don't apologize.
Yes. Well, yeah, the next place that we're going to be taking people in a similar pilgrimage as we've done to Egypt is Costa Rica. And, one of the reasons why we chose Costa Rica is because of this ancestral lineage that a lot of people connect to. So we're going to be connecting to indigenous communities while we're there. We're going to be participating in different healings to also heal our relationship with our own familiar ancestors, and just really connecting back to the land and to nature. Because when you're in spaces like this, connecting to the trees, connecting to the earth, it brings us this sense of remembrance of when we were also these indigenous people, when we were connected to the lands in this way.
It's so interesting. I just did a healing session, an Akashic healing session with a client just before this. And I said, what is it that you haven't forgiven yourself for? He's opened up his Akashic records and he goes, there was a battle in 1876. somewhere out in the West. And I go, you mean the Battle of the Little Bighorn? He goes, yeah, we killed a lot of Indians. And I'm like, you mean like the Lakota and the Sioux and the Cheyenne? My mom was a history teacher, so this all like lives inside of me. Like, yeah. He goes, I was on a murderous rampage, and he's like, and I killed a lot of people in this. And so I'm like, all right. And he goes, wait, are you for sure? And to the Google, and there's all the information. And he's crying his eyes out, and he's reliving all this. And then we go to this realm called the place of planning, where you go and you do your forgiveness. And he's like forgiving himself. He's like, I've never thought I could forgive myself or something like this.
Yeah, and I feel that. Yeah.
It was really, really beautiful. There's such power in this work, such deep power in this work. In fact, Linda and I and some others are beginning a journey tomorrow. We're going to be going into the field of quantum intuition, mastery of intuition, how to open up to all of your intuitive gifts and abilities. So I think that's kind of it, that like, this is about going and taking a look at your family lineages. Narima, is there anything that you want to say about what you've noticed in the family, within your family patterns, anything like that you want to speak on?
Yeah, so I noticed that I had so much fear and emotional frustration. Then I found out just recently that when I was a kid, this is actually what my father was experiencing, and I was holding on to that.
Wow,
So like I needed to let that go.
that's so beautiful. I noticed that there was like a core of shame. There was for my dad, and it was something that was passed on to all of us. There was, he was born out of wedlock, and so there was always this feeling of feeling illegitimate, and it's and because we are these empaths, because we are so emotionally connected to our family, we feel it, we really, really feel it. If you can go in and do that healing, you heal it for your entire family, whether they're living or not. I have a Kabbalah teacher named David Guillaume, and David's grandmother passed away, and the grandmother came and said, your grandfather's telling me how much good you're doing in the world with everything that you're teaching, and it's elevated us on the other side. So continue to pray for those that are in your family that have crossed over, the ones that you love. Linda, I know that your husband has passed. Understand that your prayers for him help him elevate. Whenever anyone I know has a family member that died, my prayer for them, which I learned from my friend Charlie Tedesco, is may their soul receive the highest elevation possible, given their good works this lifetime. Because the work that we do here elevates their souls on the other side. How cool is that?
I love that.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Me too. All right, my darlings, I've got to run, and I know Alicia does too. We've got something that's coming up. I want to thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you
Linda,
guys so much.
actually, before we jet, Linda, is there anything that you want to say before we go, my love?
Thank you, but no.
Thank you for being here. Linda is one of these
Thank
dear
you.
people that she comes to everything that I do, and I love seeing her face. I just adore you. And I'm excited for our
Thank you so
journey
much,
that we're going to start
Linda.
tomorrow.
Thank you guys so much for joining. And if there's anything you guys are interested in, I'm also going to be doing a class on joy and how to maintain happiness in your life. So this is something that I'm developing and working on, and I'm so excited to launch this sometime within the next week. And then Lynn's also doing a lot of different intuitive classes, helping you to develop different methods of transforming the way that you deal with problems in the quantum realm and how to heal yourself on a deeper level. And we're also developing a 6-month program as well, which is a mixture of helping other people to learn these healing techniques as well as marketing techniques to step into your power. So if you guys are interested in any of these things, just send us a message and we'll connect.
There's 3 quick announcements I want to make. I'm going to be publishing a book next week that is a 1-year journey I took with Mary Magdalene, where we went through the 365 lessons of A Course in Miracles. I channeled her, and she brought through this incredible wisdom. I have a dear friend named Willem, and he transcribed all of it. It's in the process of being edited, and we'll be self-publishing that on Amazon next week. So look for that coming out. I'm then going to be taking, Alicia and I are going to be taking a whole bunch of people over to France to walk her footsteps in south of France next year. We're going to be taking people back to Egypt. We're going to go in February. We're going to go in September to avoid the heat, because right now our friend Ahmed said it's 111 degrees. We're not doing that. We're going to be taking people to Sedona with our dear friend Wendy, who's an extraordinary channel who channels Archangel Metatron. We're going to be taking people to, where else are we going? I don't know, as if that's not enough. And then
Mount Shasta.
Oh, Mount Shasta. We're just, what we love to do is travel. And when you go, oh my God, we're going to be creating over the next couple of years a tour package where in 1 year, you're going to go to 7 chakra centers around the world: Lake Titicaca, Mount Shasta, Stonehenge, Cairo, to where the chakras are located on planet Earth, and doing healing. So that's going to be another incredible package we're putting together. So lots of exciting things that are coming. And tomorrow starts a book club for the Magdalene journey. There are 3 remarkable books that were brought forth by Stuart Wilson and Joanna Prentice, who were people that learned from Dolores Cannon how to do QHHT, which is the quantum healing hypnosis technique. And they brought forth information about Magdalene and about the Essenes. So that journey begins tomorrow as well. And I don't know, I think that's it for now. It's a lot.
Yay.
Anyway,
Stay
thank you all for
updated.
being
Follow Lynn on TikTok. Follow me on Instagram. Follow her on Instagram,
Follow
Facebook.
us
We
on
have Facebook
Facebook.
groups.
Yeah, where if you can't find us, you're not looking hard enough. We're everywhere.
Yes.
Thank
Well,
you
thank
all
you
for
guys
being
so
here.
much.
Much
Sending you
love.
so many blessings.
We'll see you all
Thank you.
soon.
Thank you.
Take care.
Any
Bye-bye.
Bye.
questions? Bye.
Yay.